Peter Ford.
Oh, yes. Right. You'll have my wife to thank for this small display of postal stationery. I was going to show it in Stockholm, as Simon Richards suggested we should have a display of postal stationery, but unfortunately, due to a storm, my printers blew up just before I was due to go, and I couldn't print the pages, so I did it when I came back. And you have my wife to thank insofar as when I buy things, she looks at them and she says, "Oh God, that looks awful. Why don't you buy some pretty things?" So I showed this to her and she said, "Oh, they're rather pretty." So I succeeded. Anyway, postal stationery, these pictorial postal stationery followed on from the very boring ones which had circular indicium on them, and they were attracted insofar as these designs were Bradbury Wilkinson from the original 1934 Stationery set and to the definitive set that followed on. The card that they're printed on is considerably superior to most postal stationery cards, and I think it's the same card that they used for proofs. It's really a rather smooth and very fine card, high quality card. Anyway, there was a penny and a tuppenny showing the scenes from the definitive set, and I have specimens, a used card, and then we come on to the envelopes. The first envelope was actually brought out in King George V's time in 1935, sorry, and this was also supplemented by the 3-cent stamp, which did not have the head of the king on it. I don't know how they got away with that, because George V was notorious for having his head on all stamps that were issued. And again, in 1938, with King George VI, this one, the 4-cent, was introduced with the map of British Guiana, again mimicking the pictorial definitive. News wrappers, again, that's on its own, because basically used news wrappers are few and far between. People just ripped them off the newspaper and chucked them away. They didn't. Hardly anybody kept them, so they're not very common. This one here, the 2-cent one, this is the same wrapper basically, but the second one is a different colour because it's on much poorer quality paper because it was issued during the war and the supplies were difficult to get hold of. The registered envelopes follow much the same pattern and using much the same designs all the way through. Now, when we come on to the ML letter sheets, I don't believe that Bradbury Wilkinson had anything to do with the printing of these, because the quality of the indicia is so poor that I don't think they would ever have issued them, but perhaps they did. And they started off with, again, mimicking the definitive stamps with this 12-cent orange, and they produced the 6-cent, with the Indian shooting fish. And we go through a sequence here of slightly different air letters with different wording, same wording but in a different fashion, 2, 3, 4 lines. And then they started to put the tourism propaganda on the back. And eventually we come down to Queen Elizabeth. And now things have improved considerably here. The printing is of much higher quality for Queen Elizabeth. Anyway, that's just the pretty postal station. Thank you.
Thanks very much.